Glasgow, Europe's drugs death capital, is just days away from opening the first and only place in the UK where addicts can bring their own illegal drugs and inject them under NHS supervision. It's a controversial decision made after a decade of debate and deadlock. The 3-year pilot will cost more than £7 million. In a moment, we'll hear from those who believe this money could be better spent on treatment and recovery. But first, our chief reporter Sharon Frew has been inside the facility called the Thistle in the East End of Glasgow, which officials believe will offer hope to hundreds of people.
So we'll speak to them about what needles they use, what syringes they use, and they'll be given a clean supply of single-use equipment.
Inside what has been named the using space. Here, people can bring their own supply of heroin and cocaine and inject the drugs while NHS staff supervise.
You'll see we've got mirrors here. These are very slightly tilted. That allows us to observe the injection without being too close to the person.
This will be open 365 days a year from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
We can't assist them physically with the injection, but we can support them. We can talk to them about what site they're using. Cocaine injecting in Glasgow just now is on the rise. There's many more people injecting cocaine, and that means they'll have many more injecting episodes, so we'd expect to see them through here several times a day. But the risk if they don't come to a service like this, because there's more injecting episodes, they've got worse wounds, they've got worse infections, and their health deteriorates.
Glasgow city centre and the East End has some of the highest rates of public injecting. Officials here are clear this different approach is specifically targeted at this population.
We think that there may be 400 to 500 individuals that we're particularly concerned about, individuals who've got very high rates of, for example, HIV and bloodborne virus transmission, as well as high mortality rates. So this service is targeted for them. We understand that they have very complex and deeply entrenched sort of problems.
The key area for us is the lounge area. This is somewhere we want people to spend a bit of time. Our harm reduction workers will be based here. Our social workers will be available here. These services have been run for 30 years across the world, and there have been no deaths by overdose in our service. We've got nurses who are highly trained in resuscitation techniques. We've got naloxone on hand. We've got oxygen on hand. We will see overdoses regularly, but we will manage those overdoses and will prevent them becoming fatalities, and that's the difference.
The medical model adopted in Glasgow is based on similar facilities in Australia. The Thistle will cost £2.3 million a year to run.
We've got to see this as contributing towards the overall national mission on reducing drugs deaths. I don't think this is a silver bullet, but I think it will help. I think it will help to provide the support and the assistance, the medical intervention, the advice and the counselling that individuals who are dependent on drugs will require, and to help them on a journey to recovery.
Staff don't have the ability to test the drugs brought into the Thistle yet. Applications for a licence for a checking service have still not been approved by the Home Office. While on the premises, drug users will not be prosecuted for possession, a landmark decision made by Scotland's Lord Advocate. This does not mean other offending will be tolerated.
I do expect officers will go and search people who are attending or approaching Hunter Street to see if they are in possession of drugs, obviously using the current laws. The concern is, though, if they don't do that and somebody goes in, injects and then dies, then if there's been police contact at any point, then that officer would then come under serious criticism.
But that inevitably leaves a lot of grey areas about people going to the facility. The provision, the policy doesn't affect their legal liability. People distributing drugs in the area or further away doesn't cover that policy either. So this is one of those legal grey areas to try and address this really public health issue that we're facing.
The UK government has said it will not interfere with this pilot. Other cities are watching closely. The real test for the Thistle starts on Monday. Sharon Frew, STV News, Glasgow.
Across Scotland, 1,172 people died in 2023 as a result of their addiction to illegal substances. These statistics also showed Glasgow had overtaken Dundee as the drug death capital of Europe. Tackling the issue has been described as a national mission for the Scottish Government. Our reporter Ollie Dickinson is on Hunter Street in the East End of Glasgow tonight, where the Safe Consumption Room will open. Ollie.
John, I'm 5 minutes from Glasgow's Barrowlands. Just over the street behind there from me is a major supermarket chain. I could be in any back street in any city anywhere in the UK, but as you've heard there in Sharon's report, come Monday morning, this will be the site of one of the most radical interventions in health and drug policy anywhere in the country. The question now, though, is will it work? The Thistle site is already the place where some NHS addiction services are based. The heroin replacement service is based there, but will others who are not accessing those kind of treatments come here to the Thistle? Well, to find out, I've been asking campaigners, experts and those gripped by addiction in desperate need of help, and a warning that this package contains images of drug taking. Glasgow's historic Trongate is a street of contrasts. In equal measure, new and neglected, where homelessness and hotels sit side by side and drug use is rife.
The amount of drugs that are going about just now, it's... you don't know what's in them. You don't know what you're taking.
Having moved on from heroin, Jim now injects cocaine.
I had my first OD this year. In fact, I've had 4 this year. A lot of people are getting blood clots in their legs through the cocaine, so you're ruining your body and you don't know what it's doing to your insides as well.
His story is nothing new for Street Connect and their volunteers like Scott. Routine patrols means he knows the people living on the streets and works with them to tackle addiction, homelessness and mental health problems.
You look a little bit like he seems if you get a bit of life about you. The reality is if people could just stop using drugs on their own strength, then we wouldn't have this problem or this epidemic. And people really need people like myself and my colleagues to be on the ground and actually reaching out to them, actually offering them support, one-to-one support, actually directing them to other services that are in the town.
Peter Crikent's radical intervention more than 4 years ago was to set up an unofficial safe consumption space. The recovering addict used personal experience to challenge politicians, the justice system and the NHS with a converted ambulance at the heart of Glasgow's injection hotspot.
Having, visited these facilities in 6 countries, they're now legally operational in 18 countries. So I've visited a third of the countries that they're legally operational in, and of course ran one as well here in Glasgow for nearly a year, which supervised nearly 1,000 injections. What I'd like to see is not a facility ran which is over-institutionalised and over-medicalised.
Safe injection will cost £2.3 million per year. For some, that's money that could and should be spent on getting people into rehab.
If we're spending the majority of our treatment budget on these services that, supposedly make it safer for people to use drugs and not actually investing in services that help people get off drugs, well, we're just going to get more and more people using drugs and less people having the opportunity to get off drugs. I just think it's a devastating indictment of a city and a country that's gave up in trying to help people.
Back on the Trongate, Jim doesn't see the consumption room as his route out of addiction.
Opening a place where people can freely go in and inject their drugs whenever they want, I don't agree with that. I think you're just making things a lot worse and you're just encouraging people to take drugs.
Safe consumption divides even those who know it best. For now, it's clear. There are no quick fixes for Scotland's drug crisis.
So, Ollie, the facility will open on Monday. Then what happens?
Well, officials, the Scottish Government and the local community will be watching what happens here very carefully, not just how the site operates, but the policing of the surrounding area and any potential rise in drug-related activity. The pilot here has 3 years. If it works, there is absolutely a desire to see similar consumption rooms in other known drug hotspots. In terms of next steps, the Health Secretary, Neil Gray, wants to open drug testing facilities. He needs permission from the UK Government to do that. Aberdeen, Dundee and Glasgow all want one of those services. They see it as another tool which they believe will reduce harm from these deadly substances.
Ollie, thank you.